Hello, this is Manuel Morales, and I'm here to talk about, this is actually part two of a previous video I made regarding the user stories. So today I'm going to talk about their complementary information, which is called the acceptance criteria. So just a brief review of the previous video that I made, the user stories is a more recent development in terms of writing requirements when you're gathering requirements and how to document them and show them to your development team or your project team. The user story is a little different from just writing, right, the straight outline and entries about what the system is going to do. This kind of allows, the user story allows you to have more freedom for the development team on how they build the application, and it kind of gives them the power. You empower them to use their knowledge, right, their imagination on building the system. So the acceptance criteria piece of the user story is actually building the boundaries, describing the business rules, items that they will need to keep in mind as they build the solution, right, as they update the system. So it's a good way to kind of let them know where, just what are the limitations or where they should be heading, right? So I wrote down here two particular types of acceptance criteria, right? And they're both, each of them has their reason for why you want to write it this way, right? So the first one is called the given, when, then format, which, if you want to get technical about it, it's called, I'm looking at my notes here, it's a behavior-driven criteria, right? And then the next one I have here is shorthand for, it's called invest, right? And that is a test-driven format. Okay, so you will, you can kind of see already, the differences of why you would want to use these different criteria, right? So the way it works is you write down the user story, right, as, so and so, a new user who's coming into your e-commerce platform. I want to go ahead and place this item in checkout for purchase, right? And then so that I can purchase the item, right, and get it delivered to my business, right? So this kind of gives you an idea of what kind of a situation you're doing. Maybe you're dealing with a business-to-business user here, right? So you would probably want to write that down. And where you would want to, create these additional items would be in the acceptance criteria. So like I said, the first one, so underneath the user story is where you start writing these notes, right? It's not just going to be straightforward, the system must do this, the system must do that. You want to keep this in mind. So the first one, as I mentioned, is behavior driven. So you're thinking more about the user experience more than the actual the way you're going to build it, right? So you want to give the initial context, right? So given that this might be a first time actual business, right, you're going to want to then, when he comes into this particular page, you're going to show him this particular information, right, if we're talking about checkout experience. And then once this is triggered, this is the result of it, right? So as you can see, this is more like, oh, I'm trying to imagine what this user is going to experience, right? But the second item here, which, like I said, shorthand for different criteria here: independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and then testable, right? So now you're getting a little bit more into the, let's call it, technical details, configuration wise, right? You're going to do a deeper dive into the criteria. So going back to this very crude example about going into a cart and checking items out, here you would be a little more specific about those, as I mentioned up here, all of these rules, right? The edge cases, the business rules, the particular boundaries that you may want to have for the system, right, or for that particular experience. And you want to keep those things in mind, that you want to keep them independent from each other, right? You're going to build a list of user stories that the development team can create. You know, if you're doing agile development, you want you want to complete them by the end of the sprint, and that they are testable, right? So you write down, the system should be then able to, I should be able to check out from the cart, right? Or if it's a new user, make sure they go through the registration, right? New user registration, right? Those are business, I'm sorry, more like application rules, right? Just your standard application rules. They're small enough, of course, that the development team can create them within the sprint, right? So all of these different criteria. So you can see the difference, and you can then assess, as I mentioned, when you would want to use them. It just depends on how your team is built, right? What they're going for. I think for more technically related projects, you probably do the invest method versus the first method, right? But if it's more of if the goal is to create a more enhanced or enriched user experience, you're going to give them this one, right? And the writing is going to be a little different. So I think this completes more or less what the user story is about and how you want to write it. I think from here you can just do a little bit more research in general, get some more examples of what it would look like, and then you can start building your user stories. Okay, so hope this helps, and I'll see if I can post more of these YouTube videos in English.